Hello all, this is Ruthie. Welcome to my home, beautiful New Zealand, otherwise known as Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud. It's a country of wild, rugged beauty and wonderful, picturesque farms. One of the lovely things about New Zealand is no matter what town or city you're in, sooner or later, if you're pottering around exploring, you will probably stumble over a wildlife recovery centre. And while we were in the Victorian Esplanade in Palmerston North, we stumbled across an absolutely lovely animal recovery centre, the Wild Base Recovery Centre, which is run in partnership with the Massey University Wildlife Hospital. So when they've been fixed up at the Wildlife Hospital, this is where they come to recover. And the lady who gave us a tour was a delight. She kept apologizing that she didn't have anything really interesting to show us, but she also pointed out that they are not a zoo, they are actually a recovery center. So on the whole, empty enclosures is a really positive thing. And here we have a kiwi bird, you guys. Don't worry, it will have died a natural death. This is our national icon and it's very special to us. And it's the kiwi. And here's a trick for you when you move to New Zealand or visit. If you want to eat kiwi fruit, make sure you say kiwi fruit. The fruit is very important because if you just say kiwi, you either mean this bird, which is highly protected, or you mean New Zealanders, because that's also what we call ourselves, Kiwis. And if you want to eat us, that's a little bit rude. So you have been warned. And I just found it the most uplifting, delightful experience. And if you are in Palmerston North, I highly recommend that you check them out because it was a really nice experience. The staff there are delightful. You can get them for free. And who knows, maybe you will see something interesting. And if you don't see something interesting, you will find it an uplifting experience because you will know that those animals have been healed and released into the wild. And of course, no visit to New Zealand is complete without a light little traipse through the New Zealand bush, although this was very curated New Zealand bush and I got the distinctive impression it had been grown as a native garden rather than actual bush, but it was really pretty. And you guys, there are no snakes in New Zealand, so I know it was childish and I didn't get it on camera, but I literally stuck my foot into a bush and shook it round because I knew I could and nothing would bite it. And then we came up to a tree that got the historian in the family very excited.
This here is what it was like when the early pioneers came. Not only did it have the big trees, but it had these vines. They weren't just wrapped around one tree, they were wrapped in between all the trees, so it made like basket weave through all the things so they couldn't get onto the land without a machete, and they could cut through this in order to cut little pathways and stuff like that. So the land was impossible to use without removing all of this because it was so dense. You couldn't just push your way through it. It was like hitting a woven wall of trees with basket weave in between.
And if you want to know more about New Zealand's pioneering past, feel free to check out my mum's book, To Own a Fig Tree, and also Shipwrecks and Bush Felling, and I will link them below if you're looking for something to read on the pioneering history of New Zealand. And rather thrilling. They both of those books have our ancestors in them, so yeah, that was kind of exciting. And then we pootled off to the next stage of our adventure, and we drove for a while. Like I say, you guys, I'm horrible with numbers and time, but we did pass through the Manawatu-Taurua Highway, which is a new highway that they opened as an alternative route to the Manawatu Gorge, which I think had a landslide back in 2017, I want to say, and they opened, so they opened this. I've been working on this for ages, and it was absolutely amazing. My phone battery was dying, so I didn't get much of it for you, but I did get some of the part of the highway. I think they call it the living wall, if I'm correct. And this is where they removed the most. This is the deepest cuts. They removed 2.4 million cubic meters of stuff to make this part of the highway, and it was really cool, and I highly recommend using it if you are in that part of New Zealand. Sorry about that previous scene, you guys. It is not the most dramatic shot of the deepest cut, but like I say, my battery was running down, and it was only when we got through the most dramatic part of the new highway that Rachel said to me, oh, you know, you can film and charge your phone at the same time, which I did not know, and that would have been nice to know when we were going through the more dramatic scenery, but never mind. And then of course we were just driving on towards Napier, and we were going through some really pretty New Zealand farmland, and thought I'd let you have a look at that, and so you have something fascinating to listen to while you look at New Zealand. I thought I could tell you a nice little trick of New Zealand etiquette. If you ever visit New Zealand and you're having a cup of tea with a New Zealander and they suddenly fix their beady little eyes on you and say, "Wanna look at my garden?" No is not really an option. Well, you can say no and the New Zealander won't really react, but they will think you're rather rude and strange, because we take our gardens rather seriously. What you're meant to do is say, "Oh, I'd love to look at your garden," and yes, pootle around their garden and show interest in everything from their tomatoes to their compost heap, and you will probably be rewarded with some fresh produce, because New Zealanders are actually really proud of their gardens. We stopped off here for our cup of tea, and what do you think happened? The thermos smashed, so we can't have a cup of tea. And Rachel said to me, "Oh, who's going to tell Mum?" because she had gone over to the park bench. I was like, I will break her the bad news. So we're making do with water. And let me tell you, for New Zealanders, this is a bit of a tragedy. But, you know, it is what it is. So after we reconciled ourselves to the tragedy of the smashed thermos and therefore no tea, you can tell we're of British extraction, can't you? We poodled on to Napier, and when we came into Napier we were quite impressed by all of these tall palm trees lining the road, and Rachel and me agreed it made us feel like we were in the scene at the start of the Beverly Hillbillies, or also Laurel and Hardy movies often start like that, don't they? Only we agreed it's really amusing because in the Laurel and Hardy films, the palm trees in California are much shorter than in the Beverly Hillbillies, and that was quite cool. So yes, we thoroughly enjoyed driving along the palm-lined streets of Napier. On the 3rd of February 1931, Napier was hit by an absolutely enormous earthquake, and this caused many of the central Napier buildings to collapse. So when it was rebuilt in the Art Deco style across the city, because so much of the city was leveled. Fun fact, my great-grandfather actually was one of the carpenters who helped rebuild it. So it's a really cool city because it has this really consistent Art Deco vibe across the place, and it's really pretty. I will say this though about the beach. It's really scary. We went to the Napier Parade and the gardens there are beautiful, but then there's this very, very steep bank of grey pebbles that go down to this extremely strange sea. I've grown up around the sea my whole life being a New Zealander, but this sea was creepy, you guys. It was just silent and it looked like it was trying to claw you in. And we found out later that's exactly what it does. It's got a very strong undertow, and people are advised not even to sit on that beach because it's inclined to get rogue waves and it can just pull you in. And if you go into that sea, you're probably not coming out. So, really creeped out that I even stood as close to it as I did. It's the only beach in New Zealand I've seen that's given me the creeps to that degree. So yeah, very pretty for looking at, but I wish I hadn't stood that close to it. And if I had a small child, I wouldn't probably even let them look at it. So yeah, just be advised, it's a really, really dangerous beach, and don't be a mug like me and be like, "Oh, beach," and go right down to the edge of it on those slippery grey stones, because if you go in, you probably won't be coming out. But the gardens alongside the beach and the pavilion are absolutely beautiful. So I really enjoyed that. So we explored around the beautiful gardens for a little bit more, and by then it was time to find somewhere to spend the night. Fortunately, it was the off season, so it was really easy to find a place, and we wandered into the reception of a place called the Beach Front Motel because it was just very appealing with its giant swoopy staircase, and we were easily able to get a room. The receptionist was completely gorgeous. In fact, I'm going to write to her and tell her how much I enjoyed the welcome she gave us, so hopefully she'll see herself mentioned in this video. And the housekeeper, we talked to one of the housekeepers the next morning too, and we said, oh, thank you very much for the really nice clean room, and she was so nice and friendly. So absolutely wonderful customer service. They just really made you feel very wanted, and it was such a pretty place, and it had a wonderful view of that scary, menacing beach, which might not be any good for swimming in, but it was awfully good looking. It was a very pretty beach, and as always I will link whatever links I can find below. So if you're planning your own trip to Napier, do check out my link in the description section below. And as always, these are not paid placements, it's just New Zealand is my home and I like to be able to share it with you, so do check that out. And I do think sometimes the nicest thing about holiday is when you find somewhere nice to watch a movie and have something to eat and then go to bed for a lovely sleep so you can wake up refreshed for the next part of your adventure, which is what we found at the Beach Front Motel. And in light of that, I shall now conclude this episode of Ruthie at home in New Zealand and talk to you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.